Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Sigma Prism YouTube channel. Today we have a very special guest. This is one of my favorite projects I've always wanted to cover. This is getblock.io. Welcome, GetBlock.
Thanks for having us.
Hello.
Good to be here.
Yeah, hey guys.
So getblock.io delivers the industry's first smart contract-based solutions enabling transparency and trust in a trustless environment. Each action is done by the smart pool and is visible on chain, including changes in fees, distribution of payouts, and modifications made to the smart pool itself. Another very interesting use case for this technology is the approach to distribute tokens that are otherwise not mineable. Many users of Cardano will be familiar with the initial staking pool offerings. And basically, getblock.io's answer to that is initial mining pool offering. So with that being said, what made you guys want to pursue this project in the first place?
Yeah, so I'll just start right there. So it was funny. We actually started as a bunch of miners and developers, obviously, but we found our way into the Ergo community. We were, mining on the standard mining pools. I think I was on Hero Pool at the time. And we were just, kind of questioning the trust factor and, really the fees that are around, mining with a traditional mining pool. So we started, dabbling or tinkering, I would say, within the open source code that was kind of out there. And there were things like Ergo Nomp and Ergo Stratum server. And, we just found that there was a lot of inefficiencies with the tools that were currently out there. And really our approach was, to try to find a way to, really it was all Cloudy or Vinny and myself. We just wanted to kind of pool our hash rate together and solo mine together, with reduced fees. And, we struggled using the tools that were out there. We got probably halfway there, and then there was just glitches within the software that was developed. And then we found Karat was kind of off on his own. He was in the process of developing subpooling for Ergo Hack 2. And we found the software that he was working on and said, this is really awesome, we need to kind of dive into this. So we actually just helped Karat from a miner standpoint as he was kind of developing this software, through testing and providing feedback and also bringing in other miners from the community to kind of test it out and see, what were the pros and cons, were there any, deficiencies that could be improved? And collectively, we just said, what, this is great technology. We could really do a lot with this. And from that's where smart pool, the concept of smart pools really came into play. And then it just rolled from there, through the relationship that we built together and, coming up with new concepts and ideas.
So am I correct in thinking that getblock.io is kind of pioneering the new revolution in the way proof of work mining will be viewed in the future? Because if you guys are really truly the first smart contract based mining pool, and your team is doing all of this, this could create an entirely new paradigm, as a lot of these proof of stake projects are sometimes not that well thought out, and there's not all that transparency with their tokenomics and distribution. And by offering an initial mining pool offering, you could pretty much create an entirely new market through proof of work, because you can bootstrap new tokens and new communities this way. Am I correct in thinking that way?
Yeah, you're exactly right. And it's interesting because when we first developed the smart pool, that was not our initial goal. Our initial goal was, how could we further decentralize mining as a whole, proof of work mining? How can we provide more transparency? And also, how can we, provide a social engagement with miners and interaction with the mining pool? Mining was very stale. You connect to your pool, you forget about it, you kind of leave it, you check in every now and then, you look at your earnings and you go on your day. well, there's a lot more behind mining, and we thought we can just, really bring that to the forefront, and really just create this community around mining, right? That was our initial goal, and then I think through the development of the smart pool, and really we were at a point where we were focusing on proof of vote, which we can get into later, but I
Right.
think that was the turning point where we really identified, hey, we have some framework here that we can really do something with and bring something to the table, not only for ourselves, but for the mining community in general. And I think with the ETH merge coming up, and everything that's kind of going around in the mining community with increased electrical costs and regulatory influence coming in trying to prohibit mining, I think that our platform not only provides a level of value to the miners, but it also enables projects or others within the ergo community to have a way to fairly distribute their tokens versus going through traditional airdrops and other methods.
Now I'm going to jump a bit around here. Following up with that comment, is there any sort of auditing involved in kind of the tokens that will be bootstrapped on your mining pools? Because, as we know, a lot of tokens out there, they might reserve a certain amount for their own team. And then if they have everybody else trying to mine for it, is there any sort of auditing involved in what tokens are allowed to take advantage of your innovative technology?
I'll answer this one for a little bit. I feel like one thing to keep in mind is we haven't bootstrapped any new tokens just yet. Any tokens that have just launched with no other tokens out there. For example, like Neta, it already has some tokens that have been distributed through other methods. Similarly with ErgoPad. So when you're talking about bootstrapping a new token, and I think the new term now is like FIMO instead of IMPO or something, fair initial mining offering.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't looked into that too much yet, but we do have one project in the works that's kind of going towards that direction, and we've worked with them very closely. And me and Rob have looked at their tokenomics as well, and that's SwapSwap. So that would be
okay, great. Yeah.
that would be the first project that would do a real initial launch that we're going to help bootstrap from the beginning.
Yeah, and I'll add that one more portion here also from an entity, from a GetBlock.io entity. Our premise has always been and will continue to be transparency, right? So as we're kind of R&Ding, research and developing this capability, we had Comment for a little bit of fun, Neta, ErgoPad, we are all learning about what people want, what our users want to see, and the questions they have around, okay, so if I'm paying, I have this, mining farm or a couple of rigs, and I'm contributing to your sub pool. I want to be certain that one, I'm going to get paid, how I'm going to get paid, and there's not going to be a rug pull, right? Because there's a lot of concern and valid concern. So we're formalizing the onboarding process for any formal sub pool project. And we're going to be actually contractually establishing what those terms are going to be. And those terms are going to be, as all our users keep asking us, are going to be transparent. And users are going to have clear visibility as to what the project is, what the emission rate is, how does proof of work contribute to that project, what happens, in case of Neta, for example, where, they are exchanging your rewards, your erg rewards for Neta. What happens? How's that used, right? And Neta's been done a great job being transparent as to how that furthers a project, right? Versus just putting it into their pocket. So that is all part of our mission. And we welcome the users to be able to also provide ideas on how can we better ensure their comfort level into any project that we bring onto the subpools.
Perfect. So one thing I've enjoyed watching from I think a year ago to now is the fact that you guys have just based on your unique value propositions garnered a lot more miners to join GetBlock. Because there's always this, in a typical proof of work setting, there's a the Pareto distribution, right? You'll get 80, a minority of the pools have the majority of the hash rate, which creates an entire slew of problems when you want to avoid a 51% attack, right? You're acquiring a lot more miners. I've seen your gigahashes go up over time. What are the major challenges when competing for a significant market share of hash power? As a new player like yourself, emerge out of the blue, out of the floodgates where you already have that consolidation of miners at the top with Nanopool and a few others, and many mining businesses kind of just let it run and forget about any other alternatives.
Yeah, let me start this one off. So I think, our biggest challenge, obviously we, started off as a very small pool, right? I mean, it was probably 5-10 of us, initially mining on the pool. And
sure.
I think that the biggest challenge is, like you just said, it's differentiating ourselves from the rest of the pools that are on the list, right? Because a miner, their MO is going to be, what's the most profitable pool? What's the most profitable coin? And they usually just go to the tools that are out there, like mining stats, right? And they go to number 1 or number 2, and they know it's a safe bet and they move on, right? So I think differentiating ourselves, within the community has been kind of our strongest foothold here in really separating ourselves from the rest. But it wasn't easy. I mean, it took time. We started off small, and I think that the challenge that we're up against is when you go to a large mining pool, your payouts are more consistent, right? You go hop on the pool, there's a lot of miners, proof of work mining is very random. So obviously the numbers help the probability, right? Whereas when you're on a smaller mining pool, you're going to find less blocks. So, the optics are that, there are less rewards on a smaller mining pool, but it's not necessarily the case. And again, due to the randomness of proof of work mining, it all balances out at the end of the day, and not at the end of 1 day or 2 days or 3 days. It could take weeks, it could take months to really evaluate your profitability from pool to pool. Yeah. And miners are just impatient. They want to know, look, I'm contributing my resources, to the ecosystem, and I want to be rewarded for it, and I want to be rewarded for it now. So I mean, that's kind of some of the initial challenges that we face, but I think slowly, by kind of exposing the differentiation between who we are and what the other mining pools provide, I think that helped gain our stake within the network.
Yeah, and I'll add to Robert. I think one of the we realized this very early that competing as a mining pool is a race to the bottom, right? There's an industry term from my background. You're racing to the bottom from a price perspective. Who has the lowest fee, highest hash rate? And it's kind of a herd mentality, right? So miners see more consistent payout, like Rob mentioned, and they gravitate towards that. While our technology is really cool, it really, the bottom line is, how does that benefit miners? And this is why we are interlacing all of these value-added projects and value-added ways that miners can earn more or different types of rewards besides just erg, right? And I think it's important in the current state of our industry that, and miners are realizing this as they get the price crunch, right, and profitability crunch, to diversify. So you can make your own assumptions, study what projects you feel are valuable, and now you can contribute to those projects where you previously couldn't without hard dollars, right? Without crypto. Now you can contribute with your hash rate to participate in those projects, right? As we found with Neta, there was extra rewards, and that was really cool. That was a great project, right? Now we got ErgoPad, we got other projects coming. That's going to give miners an ability to diversify their investment to have better yields over time. So I think that's is really the big differentiator in how we can compete.
Interesting. One thing I wanted to mention when you were talking about the race to the bottom, a lot of parallels came to mind with kind of stock trading platforms like a Charles Schwab or a TD Ameritrade or Robinhood. It was always like, let's reduce the amount of fees that we charge, per transaction, and so it was commission free, and then they just use your money to invest in other things. So,
right, exactly. But think about also user experience.
Yes.
Mining, we take it for granted. Mining is really complicated.
Yes. A lot of people want to use it. That was one of my other questions, right? Which you've already begun to touch on. So crypto in general just kind of lacks user experience. It's kind of techy, usually reserved for those that are very familiar with the GitHubs and things of that nature. And there isn't a lot of user experience being put at the forefront of not only mining pools, just crypto applications in general. I think Coinbase, for example, here in the US is still, for if a grandma can't use it properly, it's probably not great user experience yet. Who's responsible on your team for kind of the intuitive user experience on getblock.io?
All of us, right?
All of us, yeah.
All of you?
Okay. Say that.
No, but the users, right? I think the users, we learned a lot, right? User experience is if you're in software development, user experience is a acquired trait, right? It's a trait to do user design, UX design. So we learned very fast when we launched, by complaints and by ideas, a lot of feedback. And to the credit of the team here, we changed our UI earlier in the year to a new framework that's going to be our future. And Karat and Rob, they keep improving it day in, day out. So keep coming with us the feedback.
Yeah, and I just to add to that, I think one of the other things that kind of drove our need for user experience is, again, we were miners ourselves, and we were looking for these things ourselves, trying to utilize some of the tools and the dApps that were built on Ergo, and we saw that there was definitely it was definitely a lacking category, right? It was definitely something that was needed. We all figured it out. We had, we knew enough to be dangerous with command line and things like that. But, it gets to a point where not everyone wants to really dive that deep, and they just want to be able to click a couple of buttons and, be where they want to be. So, I mean, I think that, user experience for us was probably one of the biggest things that we made sure that we implemented. Just because, like you said, it's very complex out there, and we want the grandmas to be able to start mining, right? So
yeah, ultimately the best products are the ones where you begin as the end user, things you want to see done. As long as you want to see things that would benefit people overall. I suppose that that's usually the challenge. That's usually how the best companies and products come out. One thing about diversification of assets, you guys began building on Ergo first. So it's a two-part question. Why did you choose Ergo to begin building this out with this blockchain? And also, what other blockchains can we expect to see on getblock.io in the future? Because ultimately, diversification also means not only having the assets from Ergo, so.
Yeah, and let's answer this in two ways then. So I'll start with why did we decide Ergo? And for me, I think we all have probably our own personal reasons. But for me, it was really the community that drove me to, my heavy interest in Ergo, right? I mean, I think there's a lot of blockchains out there. There's a lot of proof of work algorithms that you can find. And, as you kind of take a deep dive into each one of them, I personally felt that the Ergo community, although, at the time it was smaller, it was growing, they were very helpful. They were, it was just a very close-knit community. Everyone wanted to help each other out. Whenever there was a challenge or, a problem to be solved, just the level of transparency in the community and the communication that was there, it really opened up my eyes that, there's a lot to Ergo and, everything that's behind it. And I just, I fell in love with it personally. And I felt that, we need to, get the word out there more. We need to kind of, help expand the knowledge about, this beautiful blockchain. But that's was really my driving factor. But would love for Vinny and Karat to add to that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I can answer this from my side. So actually, one of the things that really drew me to Ergo from the very beginning was the proof of work algorithm, Autolycus, because I had just gotten like a gaming GPU, and I didn't want to. I wanted to mine on my GPU, but I didn't want to like destroy it either by using really high temperature algorithms. So Ergo worked out great for me, and from there, actually, I kind of started getting into like Ergo subpooling and Ergo Hack 2, and that's kind of how we all got together from there. So yeah, I'd say the algorithm really helped, but also from like a development standpoint, ErgoScript is like just a really, really smart way of making a smart contract language. It's the way the Sigma protocols work and the way the language is set up to be almost reduced down into true or false statements. Once you really absorb it, you realize the genius behind it. And it's really smart in that you never execute code that you never intended to. You have a really clear idea of what conditions your smart contract executes in and what conditions it doesn't. And I'd never really seen anything like that that's also Turing complete. And once you combine those two things, you kind of just see the genius behind ErgoScript and just Ergo in general.
Not one of the questions we have prepared, but now talking about ErgoScript, I hear that a lot from a dev background. Like, you guys that really dive in deep into ErgoScript are able to see all the potential there. And then looking from the outside in, we hear all these things, but there isn't yet on Ergo a whole lot of adoption, right? Everybody's still on the Solidity bandwagon. What would it take for you, for our industry to kind of see the potential there the way you're seeing it and actually learn this programming language based on Scala?
I think it's all about education because people just don't know yet and they haven't really seen the potential of ErgoScript yet. But I feel like if you go to any dev and you kind of show them how ErgoScript works, you kind of give them like a breakdown of what this does. They start to kind of get an idea of the genius behind it and how it works. I'm actually part of Deco as well, and I did teach ErgoScript last semester, so I am trying to help with the education side of things because I just think it's a really, really cool language.
Got it. Oh, that's interesting.
And I'll add one thing. I think from the outside in, the economics of building something on Ergo as a business is much, much better. We wouldn't be able to, and to your earlier question, being the first operational smart mining pool, that's true, but that's not we're not the first coming up with the idea, right? There's white papers of building such capability on Ether, for example, right? Yeah. And it's never been done because the amount of transactions we have to do from a smart contract perspective would make it cost prohibitive to do it on any other blockchain. So how do we approach that, right? So I think Ergo is a great foundation as a platform, as a blockchain, but also the ecosystem, the support from Joe and Kush, all of the as we call the the OGs in the Ergo Foundation, Ergo ecosystem, they make it possible for us to learn, correct, improve, right, and innovate. How would we do that on Ether or Bitcoin, right, or other blockchains? I think the community makes a big difference on being able to drive innovation. And lastly is the fact of there's so much possibility still untapped on Ergo, and we're looking at that as well, as you're going to see in the coming months, of how can we do cross-chain, how can we do other things that you don't have to really leave Ergo to work and collaborate and provide those. Think about things like parallel assets, right? Like right? So all these things I think are more possible and more financially viable on the Ergo blockchain than others.
Right. One of the things that you're rolling out in the near future here in 2022 is the plasma upgrade. I will not lie, I have not read too much into it. I just know it adds a lot of performance enhancements and will help kind of how the mining pools pay out miners, and it'll be just a lot more quicker with a lot of things. So can you tell me in your own words, what is plasma for those that don't know, and how does GetBlock benefit from implementing that upgrade?
Yeah, so actually plasma is already pretty much rolled out. It's live on 3 pools so far.
Okay.
And it's been working great. So really what plasma is, it's about using sort of a data structure called an AVL tree. And really all that is, it's sort of just a way to compress huge amounts of data and compress it down into sort of 32 bytes and place it on chain. And using just those 32 bytes on chain, you can find and prove that data exists inside the tree. You can update data in the tree. You can do all these different things using just a really small footprint. So AVL trees kind of makes design more efficient in some ways, in that a lot of times developers up until now have been using multiple boxes to get around data storage requirements. With AVL trees, you can kind of put everything in one UTXO, store hundreds of thousands of pieces of data in just one UTXO without worrying about data size limits, and still be able to kind of perform, authenticated sort of operations on that set of data.
Perfect. Going back to an earlier question, do you guys have any plans in the future to roll out on any other blockchains? I would think from a very basic principle that maybe a UTXO only chains would make the most sense for now, or things that just have better transaction architecture for cross-chain interoperability. But do you guys personally have any plans in the future? Because ultimately, interoperability is the ultimate goal, right, in this industry, at getting away from our individual islands, however good they may be.
Yeah, I would say that we do have some interest, I would say, from other blockchains that we've been in discussions with on how we could potentially take the framework that we've built currently and expand into other blockchains. So there's some interest there. We are exploring it. However, I think we have a pretty solid roadmap that we're actually working on updating right now. That we will be putting a lot more focus and emphasis on what we can do with Ergo, and also exploring an L2 solution within Ergo. So we're going to put a lot of our resources behind that, but that's not to say that we're not also in a parallel path exploring interoperability with other blockchains as well. So there's some potential, there's some things coming soon, but that's where we stand currently as far as expanding into other networks.
Perfect. So on your website, there's a bit of a mention on, which is kind of necessary nowadays with the negative narrative of proof of work mining. You always want to mention some sort of energy efficiency, no matter what it is, if you want to stay relevant with all the talks going around about Bitcoin being wasteful of energy and things like that. How does GetBlock.io help to reduce kind of energy wastefulness, if any at all? And what is your opinion on kind of like the number one commodity, kind of exponentially getting harder to mine, which is Bitcoin? 2-part question.
Sure. Vinny, why don't you take the,
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. So our perspective is obviously the conversation of energy gets very polarized, in my opinion, right?
Yeah.
So my background is enterprise computing. So I've worked over 20 plus years with the largest data centers and service providers and data providers, cloud providers, and everybody uses energy. The question is, it's not the use of energy. I think the conversation is the efficiency of using the most advanced and clean sources of energy available, right? I think it's a myopic perspective to say everybody should be not using energy or using only green energy, because it's not feasible yet, right? There's parts of the country that you can't get clean energy, or it's very expensive, very cost prohibitive, right? So from our perspective, as our motto says, it's empowering humanity, right? So everything we do, we try to be very conscious of environmental and efficiency. So why Ergo? You're asking why we developed Ergo. All the things that Karat and Rob mentioned. Also, it's a much more efficient algorithm, right? We talk about the Raven coins and the Ether and BTC, right? You could argue around the efficiency. And there's a lot of great white papers coming out now around comparing proof of work versus a traditional data center and the energy consumption, or even the banking industry, how much, a Bank of America or JP Morgan, how much energy they consume to do one transaction. There's actually some pretty good data that's coming out now that does point to Bitcoin being more efficient doing one transaction than all banks combined, right? So I think to your question, our perspective is kind of twofold. For the software capabilities that we're developing, such as Smart Pool, is provide the most efficient way for proof of work to contribute to its purpose around securing blockchain in an efficient manner that we can contribute, right? Be able to, talk about subpools. We have all kinds of ideas of how can we incentivize users to participate in subpools that drive an efficiency model. The second aspect is around our hosting services and our managed services that we're ramping up is using renewable energy. We're working now locally and ramping up a lot of investment to drive infusion of technology that help with any carbon emissions, for example, solar energy generation, right? Or other alternate sources of fuel for more efficient energy generation. So those are the kind of things we're working in the background beyond the smart pool side. But to your question, I think really is the industry has to move to a point where decentralization and the true merits of blockchain still need to live without having to do a knee-jerk reaction to say proof of work is bad or everybody switch to proof of stake, right? Because then proof of stake has other challenges. It doesn't eliminate the power consumption requirement. It still has those. It's just more centralized, right? So it's more obfuscated, more hidden. So that's my perspective. Rob, what do you think?
Yeah, you stole some of my thunder, but I agree 100%. I think that when you look at, just energy usage as a whole, and you compare to, the financial institutions of the world, or even natural resource mining like gold, silver, any type of precious metals, there's a lot of energy being consumed. And, typically these are in countries where, they don't have the resources to offset that power usage with, various types of clean energy. And then the last thing I'd like to add is when you look at it as a whole and, you take BTC, for example, there are studies out there that, up to about 80% of miners currently within that space are using some form of renewable energy. So when you look at the space as a whole, I think there are a lot of negative connotations around power utilization and things of that nature. But I do think that there are things in the industry where, miners and mining companies in general are looking to offset, that power utilization.
Yeah, it's kind of a strange narrative, just to add my 2 cents about just kind of anything that has value, right, needs a certain sacrifice. And in this case with Bitcoin, at that point in time, the smartest thing to do, which still works, is to expend energy and just make it more difficult over time. This idea that, Bitcoin uses a lot of energy or ergo or whatever, and we should just do away with proof of work, it's ineffective. It's really wrong, because it's the ultimate form of decentralization if done properly, right? Because you have to onboard people with proof of stake tokens and hope that they have the capital and the means to do so versus labor. So, if this narrative of energy efficiency were really true to everybody's heart, we would probably, in the US, try to fight more lobbying against more public transit and look for other ways to do so instead of just Bitcoin being this kind of sole target, because it is a new thing that most people don't understand. And to your guys' point as well, when you want to reduce overhead, you guys know more than I, you want to look for the cheapest ways to produce the energy, which actually incentivizes renewables more often than not. Anyway, moving on from that, now that ETH is leaving the mining arena, it seems that Ergo is in a great position to absorb a lot of that hash power. And by default, since GetBlock has superior services to all the other Ergo mining pools, you guys are also in a superior position to onboard an influx of new miners that have never heard of Ergo and never heard of GetBlock.io. Are your mining pools capable of withstanding like just a giant influx of miners all at once from literally overnight, if that happens, when it happens?
That's a great question. So Rob, I'll chime in.
Yeah.
Here. So the short answer is we believe so. Now, the long answer is we actually had a good exercise, and mining pools are not, there's not a textbook that tells you how to run a highly scalable mining pool. Now, luckily, we have taken a lot of the best practices from enterprise data center architecture and cloud architecture and implemented into our mining pool architecture, meaning, how we scale, how we distribute, how we handle volume, how do we prevent denial of service attacks, all these things that can bring a mining pool to a halt. And it's really interesting because in June, when we launched the Neta subpool, we got, we went from 300, 400, gigahash of hash rate, we went up to a terahash and over a terahash, right? And that was overnight. That was the YouTube effect, right? And we learned a lot. We had a lot of issues, and I think they're very well documented. But we've done a lot of postmortem. We continue to work very closely with our service provider for some of our backend infrastructure, and then being fantastic in helping us in how do we scale. We had goals of how we handle miners, and how we have goals on handling the user interface for users. Because the thing we found is people, miners are very, hit F5, refresh, trying to keep eye on their rewards, and that's fine. So the back to a short answer is we have scaled, we changed our backend architecture significantly since June, and we're going to continue to improve that to make sure that we remove bottlenecks. But the question is unknown of how much volume is going to come to Ergo. Nobody knows, right? There's all kinds of calculations. Bitsbit is doing calculations on things. Nobody knows. Right. So did a trial run, which was pretty cool. So I think we're going to be pretty well positioned, and we're going to continue to scale as the demand grows.
I'm going to throw at you guys 3 to 4 final questions, and you guys take it, and I'll let you close out the interviews because I know you guys are short on time. I'm short on time. So have you guys ever considered that you could actually, in theory, become the largest pool and take over Nanopool? Do you have any doomsday scenarios that you may have to avoid a 51% attack? Because I could see that being the case. And then, so anybody could take that question. The other thing is, maybe Karat would be best to ask this to, is your smart contract mining pool a code, open source? Can anybody just kind of take the baton and run with it and make their own better quality version of their mining pools as well? And just finally, what other features do you plan to roll out in the future? So maybe each of you could take one of those, and we'll wrap up for now until next time. So
yeah, let me start with the 51% attack question, and then I think that will segue. Karat can kind of lead into some of the L2 solutions that we're working on. But from a high level standpoint, I mean, look, it is very potential and possible that we could become the #1 mining pool, right? And obviously, there's fears as you kind of encroach upon that 40% network distribution. It actually backfires on you, and people go against you at that point in time. So, I mean, we've initially established when we first launched the mining pool that we're going to basically do everything possible to not only ensure true decentralization of mining in general, but also work on development that will enable us to potentially disconnect or, you know, I guess the word I'm looking for is kind of split the mining pools in a sense where we do not have all that hash rate under one mining pool. Now, when we initially established that and made that comment, we've learned very quickly that that's not very easy to do, right? I mean, even if we split the mining pools, which we can do, we're still that center point or that main point of centralization being the ones that are hosting the pool. So, you know, obviously through development that we've been working on with Plasma, we have identified some potential solutions to solve that issue. Now, this is where I'll turn it over to Karat, because he's kind of the, you know, the brains behind Plasma as a whole. But we are currently working on L2 solutions within Ergo that will support our goal to become a fully decentralized mining pool and mitigate the risk of a 51% attack in the future.
Yeah, so in regards to your question about open source, all our code is open source. Even Plasma is open source. I think ErgoPad is now using Plasma as well in their own staking solutions. If someone wants to come in and try and make a sub pool, go for it, I guess. But I don't think it'll be easy for sure. It's definitely taking a lot of work. But even besides that, in the future, I don't see our future as being just a mining pool. Personally, I feel like we want to become really a platform for mining pools, a platform for smart pools. And in that sense, we want to make it easy for people to use our technology to create their own mining pools, their own sub pools, whatever it is. And we want to be there as sort of the backbone in this layer 2 solution that Rob was talking about. We want to be the backbone there to support that infrastructure, support that kind of mining pool economy.
Yeah, and I'll add one final topic. I think the mining pools have been a great research and development platform for GetBlock, for us to prove, disprove, and test a lot of concepts and kind of innovate. And as Karat mentioned, everything except our UI is on our GitHub repositories. Everything. And the reason why we don't do the UI, because we consider that proprietary, trademark, you know, copyright stuff, right? So,
right.
But everything, the underlying technology, even the original mining stratum, which is actually open source, called Mining Core. We contributed to that project. It's not our project, but we've contributed to it, and we continue to help. You know, there's a lot of small miners who are trying to mine to their own pool, and they have questions. You know, I've spent time trying to help them, and so that is the premise of what we develop. Now, as Karat mentioned, our vision is not just mining pool, right? It is a platform for a lot of this innovation, both on chain and other work as well, you know, within our model. So it's really exciting. I think there's going to be a lot of new things coming out, and we're looking for that. We're looking forward to that innovation.
Perfect. Anything on the roadmap that people should know about to get excited for in the near future? What milestones do you guys have next? Since, you know, everything's operational and running and doing pretty well.
So I would say the next steps for us would be, you know, for one, completion of the Neta Phase 3 subpool. So that's a subpool that, you know, we announced that we will be launching here in the near future, which is pretty exciting. It's very different than some of the current subpools that are there now, where this will have actual integration with NFTs. So miners will be able to acquire a Neta Angels, or may have already acquired them. And if those NFTs are located within their wallets, they will be able to receive additional mining rewards on the mining pool. So that's kind of our next, you know, go forward plan as far as subpools are concerned. Obviously, it's a little bit more complicated than the standard pools that we have launched just due to the integration with the NFTs. And then I think beyond that, there's two other things that we're focusing on. The next thing would be our managed hosting services. So you may have seen, obviously, we currently host, you know, mining resources or GPUs currently where users can, again, log on to our UI and take advantage of, not only potential purchase of equipment, we could also host the purchased equipment for them, or there's even the opportunity where a miner can send us their GPUs and we can, maintain them and host them within our OptoMiner, systems. So the next step is, we're launching that, but how do we take that and kind of integrate it with everything that we're working on in the development side of things? And then I would say the third thing that we're working on, I think that we alluded to, is this layer 2 solution. Again, utilizing some of the technologies that we've built to date and developing that, mining ecosystem or mining community that we intend to continue to build on.
Well, yeah, I kind of view getblock.io as kind of one of the core reasons maybe in the future people come to Ergo, just kind of like how people would use OpenSea and they had to use Ethereum in order to do that. Like I see your platform as not just being a mining pool, like you guys mentioned. It's actually just an entirely new paradigm to conduct the business model. Like, for example, bootstrapping NFTs as an incentive for reaching certain milestones and mining a subpool and things like that. So I think for onboarding new users to Ergo, you guys are probably at the heart of development, because the new innovation, just by default needing to use Ergo's platform, and you guys being on it, it's just going to attract a whole entire new slew of miners that, for better or worse, have been kind of indifferent to the blockchain. They only worry about profitability usually, and they're being abandoned like orphans right now. So I think this new paradigm is going to be very interesting to watch. So without any further ado, I want to thank all three of you for your time. Regrettably, we were a bit short on time today for my own personal reasons and yours as well. And I look forward, hopefully, to having you guys on in the future to talk more about what you guys are building, because it's really special. I've abandoned 2 miners for them. Full disclosure, okay? And 2 miners was pretty good too. So check out getblock.io. I think you'll be a lot happier there. I sure am. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thanks
so
for
much.
having us. Take care.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.